1. Okay, so I haven't really thought about this in a long time. I think that I try to downplay what could have happened because it was easier than accepting the scary reality. So with that out of the way, here's my experience. I was about 13, so this was a good 5 or so years ago. I was at my friend's house where I don't think I was supposed to be, strict parents, and we were hanging out. My friend is 2 years younger than me, but we grew up together. So for the most part everything was normal until there was a knock on the door. Now we were at her house alone and were definitely not expecting anyone. I'm a pretty fearless person for the most part who has no regard for her own safety, but a strong regard for the safety of others. I walked to the door and peered through the curtains. Past the door there was a man in his late 30s who was standing with a clipboard. His car wasn't in the driveway, but on the street by the house. No, scratch that. I know he saw me, because he began to speak.
I'm here to fix your cable.
My friend on the stairs has had people come to do things like that before, but her parents have always told her when and if it was happening. Her face looked confused and utterly terrified. She isn't the bravest. But I did have a bad gut feeling. So by now I think, okay, don't open the door and he will leave. A rational idea, right? Well, at this point the man kept knocking. The knocking turned to banging. He must have been kicking the door too, because the sound was so loud and violent that I thought the door was going to break. She lived on such a busy street, so I'm incredibly unsure how none of her neighbors that knew she was home alone at that time heard any of the commotion. Of course we panicked, but I knew I had to take control of the situation. My friend was in no state to move, let alone take the lead. I was 13 though, so I was out of my mind horrified. Eventually I snuck around to the kitchen and grabbed a knife. I checked the back door and went to my friend who sat on the stairs. The stairs are between each door, but we have walls that go down each side, so we were out of sight. When I got back to the stairs, the knocking stopped. My heartbeat seemed to have stopped too, because it sounded like the world became empty. The front doorknob began to turn as he tried to open the door, which was followed by more silence. After maybe 15 seconds, I heard something that I was definitely not happy to hear.
I know you're in there.
Now you see, if I were an adult, there is no way that this man would say something like that, right? His tone was that of a crazed man, and it left me feeling as if every bone in my body suddenly turned to jello. Either way, we sat very still. A couple minutes passed and we thought we were in the clear. That's when I heard gentle pulling, followed by loud banging on the backyard glass doors. At this point, I grab my friend and bring her upstairs. I grab the phone and we go to her mom's room to get into the closet. I call the police, feeling physically ill, and talk to the lady on the line. She questions us and my friend has started crying. I answer her questions and she tells me that someone's coming, and I just have to wait on the line. I feel like puking, but keep incredibly calm to ensure that my friend doesn't fall into a full-blown panic attack. She's known to get worked up easily, and I couldn't keep her calm and take care of the situation at the same time. Eventually the banging stops and I begin to breathe again. Can you still hear him? I answer the officer with a no. So she tells me that I should check to see if he's still there. She informs me to be quiet and careful. I slowly climb down the stairs and peek at the back door. No one is out there. I walk to the front and step into the room with a window and basically crawl to it. When I peek my head over, I see the man sitting on the stairs outside on his phone. This just sends me into a frenzy, so I respond in a panic that he is. She tells me to go back and hide, and the police are close. Eventually, after a long time, there's banging on the door again. This time it ends quickly. A nice lady officer calls to us from outside, saying that we can come out. We go downstairs and see a male officer talking to the man while the woman comforts us. Apparently, the man works for a cable company and was informed to go around back if no one was home and let himself in. I think anyone can see the flaw in his alibi, but he had a clipboard that had God knows what on it, that the police checked and let him go. The woman told us she believed us and not him, but there wasn't much else they can do. I hate to think about what could have happened had that man got in. I chalked it down to a cable guy that's really passionate about his work. But now I have to accept that that is most likely not the case. I hate to think that people like him who clearly have bad intentions get away so easily. Maybe I could understand if we lived in a bad neighborhood, but where we lived had always been regarded as incredibly safe. I wish no one ever has to feel as scared as I did with my small fist clenching such a big knife in such a horrible situation. I'm unsure if this even comes off as horrifying as it felt, but maybe the visual image of a man smiling at the back door that is burned into my mind is why it's still frightening to think about it. Either way, thanks for listening, and stay safe. 2. When I was 19, I was married with 2 kids. My oldest son Jacob was 2, and the younger boy Tyler was about 1. We all lived in an apartment in a tiny little town. There were 4 apartments in our building. My mom lived in the front, left-hand apartment, and we lived in the back upstairs one. We lived there peacefully until this night. In this tiny town there's a woman, Leslie, who suffers from many mental illnesses including schizophrenia. She doesn't like people and prefers to be left alone. She often wanders the streets at all hours and seemed to particularly hate my younger son. If we passed her on the street, she would stare at him and burst into a curse word-fueled rant. We would just ignore her and continue on our way. So now that you know some backstory, let's get into what happened on this particular night. The boys had been in bed for a couple of hours, and my husband and I had just gone to bed. I feel like I had just closed my eyes when I heard a noise from the front of the apartment. It kind of sounded like the toy box had been dumped, so I assumed one of the boys had gotten up. I hopped out of bed to see why they were up. I knew if one was up, soon the other would be up, and that would result in a very long night. When I walked out of my room, though, I was shocked to realize that the front door was standing open. Silhouetted by the porch light and hunched at my boy's bedroom door was Leslie. She was muttering to herself about killing the little demon child. In one hand she held a screwdriver, as she used both her hands to jiggle the knob. Luckily, the boy's door stuck when it was humid out, so there was a trick to opening the door. I knew and understood that Leslie is just sick and was not in her right mind, but I wasn't sure how to handle this whole situation. Clearly, I didn't want to turn her aggravated attention to me, but I needed to get her away from my boy's door. She just kept jiggling the handle, muttering about the demon child. I should mention at this point that Tyler was and is the most joyful kid I have ever known. Jacob had always been quiet and thoughtful, while Tyler is loud and smiles brighter than the sun. He will do big things to make someone else happy. Jacob also thrives on making people happy, but he does it in such small ways that you almost don't realize, until you do. I was sure that there was literally no possible reason for her hatred of Tyler. I was sure it was just her mental illness speaking. But it was insane. Anyway, back to the story. Luckily, my mom was walking home from the bar across the street from the apartments, and she heard the crash, which I now know was my front door being smashed open. My mom had lived in this town longer than I had and had dealt with Leslie's outbursts several times. So while I was trying to decide how to distract her from my boy's room without getting stabbed, my mom was creeping up the stairs to my apartment. My mom stepped into the apartment and Leslie turned to look at her. My mom asked her what she was doing, and she started crying and told my mom that she had to kill him. They kept telling her that she had to. By this point, my husband had woken up and called for help. The cops came and escorted her away. They took her to her sister's house down the road. Fortunately, her sister is under no illusions about her sister's condition. She knew that Leslie only got bad when she stopped taking meds and began drinking instead. So Leslie was taken to hospital to get her stabilized and back on her meds. The family apologized, and we moved before she was released from the hospital. The boys slept in my room until we did move, and for a while after that. Last I knew, Leslie is doing okay. They think Tyler set her off because he resembled a baby the family lost. When she saw him, she decided her meds weren't working because she was seeing things again. So she stopped taking them, and then began drinking because she couldn't deal with seeing this baby everywhere. Maybe that's crap, maybe it's true, I'm not sure. We haven't seen her since, and her family works hard to keep people from spreading stories. Tyler is now 18 and still full of sunshine. Jacob is 19. We have 2 more kids and have been married for 20 years. It's still the scariest night of my life. I'm forever grateful for my mom and that darn sticky door. I'm sure either Leslie or I would be dead if she had managed to get the door open. 3. I've had 2 encounters in my life that I think you will all appreciate. After thinking it over, I decided I can at least share one that terrified me to the point of paranoia. For the record, I am a 28-year-old male, and this happened just last year in a major southern U.S. city. Given the nature of what happened, I am not fully comfortable sharing the precise city and locations. Also, this will be pretty long, as the details are still fresh in my mind. My best friend Lauren and I took advantage of an extended weekend to visit several of our closest friends, whom all moved to said city. For clarity, their names are Jacob, Jessica, Bailey, and Tim. Conveniently, they all live in the same house, which is important. We had no shortage of fun and eventful moments Thursday and Friday, but Saturday night is where it all kicks off. We went to this arcade bar that had damn near every arcade game in history, plus all the new fighting games converted to arcade style. Jacob and I have a pretty mean geek streak, so this was pure bliss for us, getting to dominate in Tekken, Injustice, TMNT, more Tekken, etc. Lauren was also having a blast with us, but Bailey and Jessica were struggling to find enjoyment, bless their hearts. Tim had to work a sudden night shift, so he was not with us. Eventually, they decided to grab an Uber to their favorite country and line dancing bar. I'd been before, and country is just not my thing, so I stuck to the bar and Cade. Eventually, Lauren decided to take an Uber to the country bar, as she'd never been and was curious, planning to fully regroup at the country bar when the bar and Cade closed. We set up a group text, and told Jessica and Bailey that Lauren was coming, and to meet her at the front, since it's a massive place, and off she went. I don't remember how much time had passed, but I received a text from Lauren telling me she couldn't find Bailey anywhere, and that Jessica had already gone home. Jacob and I decided to drive over there, pick up Lauren, and head home. We figured Bailey was with the guy she was interested in at the time, hence her radio silence. After the 20-ish minute drive to the bar, I called Lauren, told her we were out front, only for her to respond with, "It's okay, I'm going to stay a while longer." "Are you sure you want to stay?" I asked. "Yes," she said plainly. With no other option, I asked that she let us know when she heads back and to be safe. Jacob and I drove back to the house. Before I go any further, I need to describe the layout of this house. It's a traditional 2-bedroom house, with the office room having been converted for an extra bedroom. This house also had no curtains or blinds on any windows, and there are 2 massive windows in the living room looking out into the main road, and door windows in the former office room. In the backyard there is a garage that has its own mini-house attached to it. This is where Jacob lives, and I slept there for the weekend. Once we got home, we had 1 or 2 more drinks, and at around 2:30 a.m., I got a text from Lauren saying she was on her way back. With that, I went to the futon and passed out. I was jolted awake to the sound of the door being burst open and somebody shouting at us. It was Bailey. She was shouting at us, frantically demanding to know where Lauren was. My watch read 4:30, and I felt really uneasy in my stomach. It took Jacob and me 15 minutes to get home, so where in the hell was she? She hadn't answered or returned any of Bailey's calls. Jacob was so drunk that he couldn't stay awake, so it was on Bailey and me to try to find her. I called Lauren, and she luckily picked up. Having known her for 10 years, I could tell she was both highly intoxicated and scared, trying not to show it as best she could. This in turn scared me even more. Asking obviously where the hell she was and if she was okay, She aggravatingly responds that she is okay, and in an Uber headed to the house, ETA 15 minutes. I couldn't get any more information from her. She said she needed to hang up so she could use her GPS to get home, and hung up. Why would she need to use GPS if she has an Uber? 15 minutes on the dot, and no sign of Lauren arriving. I was ready to turn this whole town upside down, but called one more time. She picks up, sounding just as agitated, but this time, I hear more than one voice on the other line before they all hush. As I start asking her all the details of the Uber car, driver, and passengers, she tells me it's a red Toyota sedan and she's 3 minutes out. Hanging up once again abruptly. Not taking any chances, I quickly put on a shirt and pants, grabbed my 2 knives, harness and Celeste background, ready for a potential mess with whomever these guys might be, and waited on my front porch. Bailey ready to call 911 in the event that shit went south. Roughly 3 minutes later, a vehicle slowed towards our driveway, a white pickup truck. The passenger door opens and out walks Lauren, exiting with haste, and not bothering to close the door or look back. She didn't say a word to the driver. I could quickly see 3 other dudes in the truck, and couldn't get any specifics before one of them closed the door. As we both rushed to Lauren's side to help her in, she was dead silent, and slightly stumbling hastily to the house. After what she told us, I have plenty of reason to believe that these guys were traffickers. One, she was all alone in the bar when a guy came up and asked her to dance. When she agreed, another guy came and grabbed her phone and wallet, with the excuse that it will make dancing easier. How easy it'd be to check her ID and see she's not from the state, and appear to be on her own. Plus, they could use that as a means to keep her from leaving. They took her to a separate room where a bunch of guys had her drink a shitload of booze. She'd be too intoxicated to drive, and she wouldn't look drugged, making it easy to slip her past security under the guise of she's too drunk to drive, so we'll take her back. 3. They said that they knew the address to which she wanted to go, but knew a shortcut. Lauren's too smart for all that, which is why she pulled up her GPS. Once I called, they must have realized that people were already looking for her. After she told us all of this in the living room, we noticed that the truck had not moved, only turned its headlights off. Once I turned the lights off, they finally left. No couch for tonight. She was definitely sharing a bed with someone that night. We made sure that every single door and window was locked, and to call us and/or 911 if anything went bump in the night. I went back to check the garage house, only to learn that the front door does not properly lock. God damn it! The only brilliant idea I had was to place a bunch of empty beer cans from the weekend against the door, so we could hear if the door even slightly opened. By this point, it was 5 in the morning, still no sun. Knife went under my pillow, and back to sleep I went. I was pretty confident the ordeal had passed, but I was disturbed at the thought that these likely are dangerous people, and now they know where my friends live. Not even an hour later, I woke again to a sound by the door. Sure enough, it was the sound of beer cans sliding along the tile floor, followed by the door quickly being quietly shut. Knife in hand and ready to piss a river, I was confronted with 2 immediate choices: check the window if anyone was outside fleeing, or check the interior for any intruders. I chose the latter, stupidly forgetting to call my friends or 911. I was tired and scared. Jacob still hadn't budged from his bed, and I couldn't find the strength to open my mouth. I just kept checking every room and corner underneath Jacob's bed and the garage. If the situation weren't already terrifying, that garage at night would be a phenomenal prop for a horror movie. After concluding that Jacob and I were the only ones in the house, I checked the beer cans on the floor. It was not my imagination or a dream. The beer cans had been pushed by the door. Someone had just tried to get in. I looked out the window for the first time and found nothing out of the ordinary. But I gave whomever came snooping plenty of time to run or hide as I checked inside. Thinking only for the safety of my friends inside the main house, I made yet another stupid decision to step outside and check the perimeter. It was still incredibly dark out, The only light available was a dim backyard light they perpetually kept on, and my flashlight. There were no cars at this time of night, no dogs barking, and I can't remember hearing any birds or insects. The silence was unholy. I was waiting to hear footsteps or breathing, or to see someone at every turn of my flashlight. Nobody was in the backyard, so I checked the windows and doors for any signs of disturbance that I could tell. I could see directly into the office bedroom, which made me feel sick at the thought of someone with ill intentions peering in to see who was sleeping in that room. Fortunately, my search was anticlimactic, as I didn't find any sign of anyone sticking around unless they were well hidden. Regardless, I hauled ass back into the garage house, relieved myself, rearranged the beer cans in case someone were to try again, and stayed awake and alert until the adrenaline dump sent me to sleep. My watch read 11:30-ish when I woke up, and as far as I know, nothing further happened. I updated a rather hungover Jacob about what went down less than 12 hours ago, to which he simply responded, "Shit." I found it rather funny given how high-strung I was in handling the situation. I didn't want to, but I asked everyone if they'd try to get into the garage house after Lauren was back home, and of course nobody said they did. I only told Jacob about my personal ordeal, in hopes that he would get that lock fixed. I didn't want to freak anyone else out more than they already were. 2 months later, when Lauren and I came back to see them, I told them everything. But I was most pleased to see that Jacob's lock had been fixed, and there are now blinds on nearly every window. Lessons learned. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 368. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Well, I think I know how Captain Kirk felt. Today, as I was heading out, I was buying blinds. I'm going to be decorating at the weekend. Okay, I keep forgetting. You guys got this on Monday, but I'm recording it on Thursday. I'll be decorating at the weekend, and I want to have obviously new blinds and things to go on the windows when I'm done. And I reached down to my keys, and I thought, hang on, what's that little bit of metal dangling from my keys? It turned out, and I hope you're sitting down for this, it's very tragic. I had a little model of the USS Enterprise on my keychain, and it had apparently broken a couple of days prior when I came home, because I hadn't been out of the house for a couple of days because the weather hadn't been great. And the Enterprise was destroyed. So I suppose I'll have to get another one and call that the Enterprise A then. Anyway, with that I'm going to head off from now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.